Right. So thank you, Dr. Uma. Thank you, Kahumba, for joining. So let's talk about AI, right? So I'm Ichi, by the way, for those of you who may not know me, Kamano Ishada, but everyone calls me Ichi. And I host this platform called Wezesha. Wezesha's mission is to empower through shared experiences. And this is part of what we do, bring people in to share their experiences. And by doing that, the empowerment flows into others who may be interested, and that helps them fulfill their potential. So that's the mission of Wezesha. So today's topic is AI, and specifically demystifying AI. And so what we want to talk about is AI, right? AI is being framed as the next and greatest transformational evolution. That's what everyone is saying. However, many members of our community are still trying to understand it. You know, some people, the only thing they know about AI is that it consists of two letters, A and I. That's all they know. They don't know what it means. And they're still trying to understand it. Why is it used? How is it used? How can I benefit me? And most importantly, what's the impact to me, my family, my well-being, my community? And so, you know, Kehumba approached me, I think it was maybe 4 or 5 months ago. I know it was a while back. He said, we need to discuss this. And no matter how much I blocked him, I didn't respond to his calls. He kept insisting, our community needs this. And so that's why we're here. Many in our community, they're too shy to ask. They don't know what it is. Some of them are stigmatized by AI. They're like, I've been told I shouldn't use it, so I won't use it. And what this does, it widens the gap that we have between those who know about AI and those who don't. We have a lot of people who are very, you know, very educated in AI at a very technical depth. And so we'll talk about that as well. But at the end of the day, what we want to do is demystify and normalize AI. So the goal for today and the next session is to empower each member of our community by making AI very understandable. So Kehumba and Dr. Uma, I will keep asking you to explain it to me like a 6-year-old, because we want everyone here to walk away knowing one thing about AI that they did not. And really, we want to make it less scary to everyone. So having said that, I will turn it over to Kehumba and then Dr. Uma to just introduce themselves and just, you know, give me a short bio and then tell me why this topic is interesting to you. Kehumba, I'll start with you.
All right, thanks Ishi for having us here. And like you say, I think you and I have been talking about this for a while. So I am Kehumba Derito. I actually work at Kennesaw State University. I'm the executive director for health and safety. So I'm sure some of you are trying to figure out what's the relation with health and safety and AI. So I also have a master's in computer science, and so that's where my interest in AI come from. I did actually teach briefly. I did my master's when machine learning was kind of coming up. I had an opportunity to do some of that. So AI is a hobby for me, to be honest with you. I like it, I enjoy it. I do AI application development just as a hobby for now, because that's not my day job. So that's where my interests come from. I have had an opportunity to kind of present to especially people in my profession, and that's when I realized that I think there's a lot of kind of a gap in terms of what people knows and about AI. I think because of the AI has been there for a long time, mainly from movies, and I think the perception that is there, it's unfortunately based on the sci-fi concept of AI that's taking over, destroying human being, and a whole bunch of people, that's the way they see it. And then before the current wave of AI that's real, practical and useful and productive, the previous one was maybe people fake videos, fake pictures that also makes people very suspicious of it. I think in the last 3 years since generative AI came by, that's when we started really seeing useful production, productive use of AI, and it has accelerated very fast and is moving very fast. So for those people that are going to remain skeptical, they risk being left behind. And I think that's the point, is that you can't be trapped with your perception of the artificial intelligence of the past. So
Wow. Those who they risk being left behind. So I'm going to put that because I want to come back to that. It's a very scary proposition for some people. What do you mean be left behind? Kwani, what am I missing? Right? Like what is going on that I need to know? So having said that, Dr. Omar,
Yeah.
how about
Thank
you?
you. Thank you, Dr. Ichi. Now, I mean, from what Kiumba just mentioned, no one should be left behind. It's simple. There's no magic, nothing serious. It's just like algorithms, and they are working together to make prediction. And so I want to define, 2006, I had not learned even how to do typing. And so let me go back to what I wanted to be. So as a young man, a young boy growing up, I thought I wanted to invent something that's never been invented. I used to, read people who went to the moon, who went to the space, and who are inventing a lot of things. And so I wanted to invent something. As a young man growing up in those area, rural area, huko Shago kabisa. So there was something called GHC, civics. Yeah, if you did that in primary school. So I was told there's something close to that called physics, but not civics. So I was told that is the toughest subject, that if you want to be tough, if you want to invent something, then you have to do physics. So at one point I was confusing civics, and I knew it was like same thing. So I went to high school, and I say I want to do this physics. So I was in Form 1 doing so well in biology, Form 2 doing exactly, the last one was just A in biology. But I asked myself, can biology get me to where I want to be? So if I have to sacrifice, because we are not allowed to choose both biology and physics. So I decided to drop biology, which I was doing better than, doing well, extremely well compared to physics. But I wanted to be this tough guy. So unfortunately, my cut points after high school wasn't good enough to go to engineering class. So it took me years to try to figure out how I was going to get to engineering class. And so Kenya Poly by that time was coming to be known as TUK, Technical University of Kenya. And so I was waiting for the intake to do engineering. And then somebody told me there's something called computers, which is so close to engineering. So it's engineering of software engineering. It's not engineering of hard engineering. So when I told my people that I want to do engineering, they told me everyone does computer after high school. They go for a computer college. Why would you spend the whole time in that, in learning computers, right? And so I decided, let me just try it. If it's close to physics, it's close to engineering, well and good. I want to do it. And so I didn't know even how to type. So I didn't even know how to operate anything. And somewhere I had a point. I had someone talk about intelligence, which is so artificial. That what really made me happy, making something to think like me. And that is what AI is. Simple, very clear. Giving machine, in this case computers, an intelligence that is similar to us. The difference is that intelligence can make them do the same things that we're able to do faster, with a lot of speed, better than us with a lot of precision. So AI is more just giving a machine an intelligence and ability to be able to learn, to reason, to solve a problem in a faster way, in a more accurate way. It's as simple as that.
I know you say it's as simple as that, Mr. Civics Physics. I never knew that about you, by the way, Dr. Uma. So
Now you got it.
do you like civics more than physics, or physics more than civics?
So I think from this I like AI more than anything else.
Okay. So since
Yeah.
we're talking about AI, a lot of people ask me, so Ichi, you're always coming here with this Wezesha thing, like, do you actually have a job? Like, what do you do? And so in thinking about AI and in trying to explain how AI works in the back end, I want to describe to you the day in my life. All right. So I want you to look at the picture from the left going clockwise. That picture was AI generated, by the way. That wasn't me. It was AI generated. And I had to tell it many times, I want a black person, I want a female, because otherwise it just generated an image. But I want you to think of yourself, Dr. Uma, Kehumba, Keviro, Washington, Judy. Most of you represent that person who's in front of a computer or a smartphone, and you're putting a set of instructions like Google Maps, Google Photos, etc. That instruction leaves your machine and goes through this vast array of networks, which is that picture in the middle. All these networks are telecommunication companies that have laid down fiber, copper, all these lines that allow that information to come from your machine and traverse all those networks. That's what that is called. It's called a network. Eventually, that information gets to the picture on the top right, which is called a data center. Now, what is a data center? A data center is a building similar to a Costco, Target. What are some of the shops in Kenya called? Is Uchumi still there? Okay.
Well,
you Americans, Nakumat, I don't think exists, but is it still there? It's still there. Naivas. Thank you, Judy. Right? So a data center, I want you to picture a humongous, in sometimes as many as 10 times the size of your Costco, 10 times the size of your Walmart. That building on the top right is what's called a data center. And a lot of you refer to it as the cloud. So the cloud is actually a physical building. It's not mawingu up in the sky. It's actually a physical building. So now the information has gone from the person on the left through the network to the data center. What is inside the data center? Let's look at the picture at the bottom right. Again, another network, but this time this network is inside the building and it's connecting all the computers inside the building. So when you look at the picture in the middle, bottom middle, that is what a typical data center floor looks like. It is a rack filled with racks and machines. A rack is like a shelf. When you go to Target, you see a shelf, it has produce. In our data center, they're called racks and not shelves. And in each of those racks, you have many machines. Those machines, each of them have what's on the bottom left. That's called a chip. And that chip, when it comes to artificial intelligence and machine learning, is a very powerful chip called a TPU or a GPU. You don't need to remember that. Just remember it's a chip. So the journey from the person in the top left, clicking on a computer and saying, search for this, let me look at my photos, that instruction goes through the wide area network, gets to the data center, goes through the network within the data center, goes to the racks and machines, and the chip is the one that is powerful enough to give us the intelligence we call AI. So going back to what do I do for a living? This is what I do. I make this happen. I work with a network, I work with a data center, I work with the network within the data center and the machines, and I make sure the highest, best machine learning machines are available to that user on the top left. So I think it's important to give that backdrop because AI is not something that is a concept. It's something that is real. And at the end of the reality of AI rests a physical component, which is that component on the bottom left, which comes from Google, Amazon, and primarily this company called NVIDIA. So before I turn it back to the guests, here's what I wanted to, this is how I'd like to frame our conversation. Kehumba said, AI is not new. And AI is not new. What it is it's profoundly different today compared to what it was. And so when I think about AI, I think about 50 years ago when humans wanted to challenge what can a machine do? And so the first part that I want to talk about is the notion of challenge me. Researchers, scientists saying, can a machine actually play chess with a human? Right? So you give it instructions, it starts recognizing patterns, and it was something interesting. It was experiments, really interesting. Then I go to the second phase, which is, hey, machine, help me. I don't know if you were in this situation that I was in. I bought this thing called a Roomba. I think not the dance, but the little car machine. And I watched it, and it cleans a part of the floor, then it figures out where it hasn't cleaned and where it's cleaned, then it goes to a new place, then it cleans, and it just does it by itself. But it wasn't the fact that it was robotically doing it by itself, it's that it was thinking where to go next, right? And so we've had a lot of technologies that are AI driven that have done that, and those were what I'd call assistive. But now we're at the point where we say, machine, decide for me. I want to go on a trip with my family to an exotic place, help me. And it goes out, does the research for you, and actually comes and starts making decisions for you. I want you to think about the self-driving car called Waymo. We just started it in Atlanta. I first was in it maybe 7 or 8 years ago in California. This thing actually makes decisions on how it's going to react to things that are coming to it. Is that a child or is that an adult? Is it a stoplight or is it not a stoplight? Is it a bike? Is it a motorbike? It is making decisions. And when you think about the picture that I put in the previous slide, that car is representing that lady on the left. So in milliseconds, it's going through that entire backbone, the data center, the network, the machine to the chip to make a decision on what to do. That's how powerful AI is. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Kihumba, with a question, but I want to frame it this way. Is AI new or is it profoundly different? And if it's not new, why is everyone talking about it like it's the best thing since sliced bread?
I don't think it's new. I think it just hit a critical mass. I think so. What we've had is AI at a certain level, and it wasn't that big, especially for mass consumption. The Chat GPT, when it came out, I think that's what really has brought it to the everybody's attention. Even before Chat GPT came, Tesla and Waymo's vehicles were out there. And I think when you're talking about AI, especially to the general population, I know a lot of us, when we say AI, the most immediate thing that comes into mind is ChatGPT, chatbots, and I think the reason why we talking about this topic is to tell people that AI is beyond just those things. The Waymo vehicles you talked about, Teslas and all the other machines that are supposed to be autonomous, that's part of AI. And that's just a subset of what AI is. At the end of the day, it is a general purpose technology that can be everywhere and will be everywhere. I was listening to a presentation by Andrew Ng. I think it's called Andrew Ng, the guy that used to work for Google. He's a very renowned AI guy. And he said the equivalent of AI is electricity, whereby electricity is ubiquitously used everywhere, on everything, and that's what AI will become. You're using it on everything. And so the reason I say, if you don't pay attention to it, you'll be left behind, because it's going to be applicable in all areas. It's going to be applicable at home. We're going to have it at work. We're going to be using AI to drive us. It's going to be in the hospitals making diagnosis on us. But I think we've had component of AI, where machines have been trained to do certain things, but not at the level we are today. Part of what has really made it popular right now, to be honest with you, is generative AI. So I think what is big right now is generative AI. There's still a lot of other part of AI that are still yet to become mature. Embodied AIs, where you have AIs on robotic, the thing you're talking about. That's still very primitive, and we are not at the level that where I think it need to be, and it will be in the future. The biggest element that approach the generative AI is deep learning. The computer model that described deep learning were initially described in the 1950s. So when you think about it, those ideas have been known. What actually has not been possible is a couple of things. One, the data that was necessary to make deep learning possible, and the compute. And probably the compute, the cost of compute, the infrastructure for compute, that stuff you laid out there, the data centers, the network, that was not there back then. But the combination of massive amount of data that we have today and the compute infrastructure that is there today at the cost that is available today has allowed the deep learning to actually become practical. And the deep learning is what has really opened up generative AI. And with the generative AIs, we have everything else that we're riding on today and moving it very fast. So, yep.
I think let me bring this up because you brought this up, and I want to talk to what you just spoke about, right? There's what has made this possible is these four things, right? I'm going to go back to redefining AI, but I want to talk about the four things, the data avalanche. And what that means is if you think about 20, 30, 40 years ago, even now, a lot of people are still filling things out on paper pen, right? You go to visit the doctor, you know, your name, your phone number, right? But over the last, 15, 20 years, there's been an incredible push to digitize data. Now, what happens when you digitize data? Digitize data, that makes it then available for the machines to receive, to be able to consume, and for people to put things against. They can actually reference that data. And then, Kehumba, you talked about it, computational power. I can talk through generations of how chips are becoming more and more powerful. For us, sometimes it's a 12 to 18 months before the next chip is available, before the next chip is ready to go to market. So what that means is, imagine if you had a car that could go 20 miles an hour. And then 18 months, there's a car that goes 30 miles an hour. Then another car that goes 40 miles an hour. So we are in the bleeding edge of technology where it's coming so fast and it's being given to the public so quickly. The algorithms are better. Akina Marco Uma Dr. Uma is graduating students through 7net who are creating these algorithms in neural networks. I mean, think about the fact that the computer is now able to, sometimes wrong or right, create an image. It can hear your voice. It can detect your language and translate to another language. All this is a result of algorithms that didn't exist before. But for me, the best thing is democratization of data. And what that means is we are in a public internet where someone in a remote village in Nyeri can actually participate in AI because they have access to that data more than we've ever had before. So we've talked a little bit about, the excitement around it, but I want the people here to have a really good definition of AI. So, Dr. Uma, just
Yes.
tell me, if I'm in front of my machine, my phone, and then someone says use AI, what do I click on? What do I do? Kehumba is telling me LLMs, just what do I do? Where do I press?
Okay, thank you. But even before I answer the question, because I would say, whatever is around us right now, let me give you an example. So Google Maps can be able to predict the traffic for you, courtesy of AI. Right now, even back home, M-Pesa, I think now they're improving fraud detection. I saw yesterday, YouTube are also using AI to look at the ages and provide, to be able to predict the ages of people using YouTube. Voice assistant, today, you had Siri, we've had Alexa's, we've had, like you just mentioned, that I can write something that can be converted into voice, that can be able to be used by people who can't be able to read, for example. And so AI is, I wish not to use these words, but let me just use this word. So you talked about democratization. You've talked about the computational, value that we have right now. You've talked about data that we have. And so let me try to go back to defining the components of AI. First is the data that is used. Second is algorithm. So maybe I'll say data is what I will not say this AI, but that's what is used, what's being fed is the food. Algorithm is like the recipe, how to prepare, how will it work. So for example, for you to predict that there will be traffic, these are the things that you need to do. These are the steps that you need to, like you're preparing ugali, which I like so much. You have to do one thing. Of course, you can't start with the hot water, then then unga, then there's a procedure for you to be able to prepare ugali. So algorithm is more of the steps, the procedures are telling how the process will be achieved, if the result will be achieved, and how it's going to be achieved. Now, machine learning models, these are the models or models, are like the brain that makes the prediction. And so there are other components. I wish I would use a simpler terms, but you just excuse me. I'm trying to look at the safest way, the simplest way. But also there's neural networks, which are the layers that be able to work a human brain. And then there's LPN, natural language processing, a neural processing language, which is like trying to help understand the natural language in your own language. So machine has a different way of understanding the language that they're using, but there's this normal language that we are speaking, like English. So if you type, for example, please tell me how I can be able to achieve, how I can be able to prepare ugali. It can be able to give you steps on how you can be able to prepare ugali. And of course, there's machine, that's the computers that can be able to provide. And then there's also reinforcement learning, where now the machine can be able to learn by making mistakes or predicting. Of course, it will learn. So for example, if we are learning and you are told that when you add 1 + 1, you can be able to get 2, then machine can learn that what about if I add 1 + 3, what will I be able to achieve? And there are many ways that it can be able to learn. And that's how it makes the machine powerful. Machine becomes more powerful than even the original intention. They are learning and learning and learning and learning, and that makes them more powerful. They can be able even to create things that you as a person who came up with that AI cannot understand. So if you are told to use AI or use AI, like people just use, long time ago, I had a friend who was told, okay, who came to New York and he was asked for direction. He was told, use your phone. I think right now he would be told, use AI. There are some questions that you don't need to be worrying about, like how do I know that there will be traffic? How do I know that I can be able to predict? And I want to give an example, which I didn't want to give right now. But we, as 7-8, you've talked about training our students to be able to understand the use of AI and how they can be able to use AI to benefit themselves and benefit the community as a whole. Now, we've developed a powerful tool called Navismart AI, which is a tool that uses AI to be able to have a conversation with you and be able to support you in all your journey, from when you are looking for the information down to when you are integrating into the community. So AI is a powerful tool, and I would just say the most and the easiest way how to understand is ChatGPT, for example, which is a very common. I think Kimbo just mentioned that. It's just that's AI driving all that. But when it comes to more technical, it's more than that what you are seeing. In short, let me say, summarizing by saying that AI is giving a machine a knowledge that it can be able to reason, to learn, and solve problem just like human being. The difference is it will be able to do this with a lot of speed and scale.
Better than a human being with a lot of speed and skill.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to ask now Dr. Kiwumba. Kiwumba. You're a very technical person. We may have some people here who are highly technical. So I'm putting this drawing that you sent me. Can you use it for those technical people to describe all these things that we keep hearing? We had generative, assistive, agentic, like we've had all those things. So how do you use this model to talk about what AI is?
Yeah, so like I mentioned at the beginning, I've done a couple of presentation in seminar and conference on AI. And one of my goals is normally to kind of table set, just have, try to have people understand some of the basic terms that they hear. And this is important in terms of demystifying AI, because I think one of the challenges when it comes to AI is that people think there's this black box that they don't know how it works. Um, and because they don't know how it works, they're suspicious of it. And I think part of our uh, effort should be to really educate people and tell people what is this really black box thing. There's nothing magical about it, like Omar was talking about. But what this diagram shows is the relationship of the concept that you hear a lot. So at the outset, the universe is the artificial intelligence, which is basically artificial is the opposite of natural intelligence. Natural intelligence is what we associate with. Unfortunately, when we're defining artificial intelligence, we talk about of making machines do things that are typical of human being, which is now the natural intelligence, which I think is unfair because human beings are not the only entity that has natural intelligence. So to be honest with you, I think there are some animals there that are even more intelligent than some of us. So to me, it's whereby you're having machines that are capable of doing things that are typically associated with natural intelligence, ability to reason, ability to make decisions. That is the outset. And like we're talking about, there's a lot of things that can apply to that. And this is going to be a lot of growing areas in terms of what can utilize artificial intelligence. And that's where we're going to find that there's so many things that we're going to be able to apply artificial intelligence. But then how do we realize that? Human beings do the things they do because we learn. When we're born, we know nothing. Everything else we do is because you learn. The network stuff you're talking about, Ishi, is because you've had years and years of learning to be where all of us. So for machine to attain the intelligence we're talking about, they also have to learn. So how do they learn? It's a machine learning, which is what Salma was talking about. That's the concept. And essentially, they learn by being given massive amount of data. To me, it's a concept we used to do in Kenya where you read and read and read and climb. That's basically a machine learning. And we can talk about the actual machine learning, the actual methodologies by which machine learn, supervised, unsupervised, and reinforced learning. Those are a little bit of a deeper topic. But that's essentially how they learn. The same way we learn as human beings. For instance, the supervised learning is when you give machine certain data, and you show it an image and you label that image as a dog, another image you label it as a zebra, another image and you label it as a chair. And at some point, the machine is able to learn the pattern. And the next time you give it an image that is not labeled, it should accurately say that that's a zebra and not call it a dog, So the same way you'd walk around with your child and pointing that that's a tree, that's a person, it's the same concept. Then, deep learning, it's a subset of machine learning. This is the one we're talking about, and this is the concept where they figured out that using the so-called neural network, which is compute framework that is kind of meant to model human neural networks in our brain, where multiple layers of, where you input the data and then you go through one layer, and that the output from that one is fed into the next layer like that. And they're big, they're deep. That's why they call it deep. And scientists will tell you they have no idea what happened in between the input and the output. Omar can confess that. So what they know is it does magic. And this actually is the concept that really has enabled a lot of stuff. It was originally well applied in things like image recognition. But then we now, kind of applied it into generative AI is now where we're starting to, where the computer can generate content. You give it a text, it generates an image, and that's the generative AI. The ability for generative AI is because of deep learning. now that we have deep learning, we have the compute power to run the deep learning. Then we have generative AI, and from that generative AI, then we get the so-called large language models. And there are a lot of them. ChatGPT is one of them. Gemini, Llama, and a whole bunch of them. Okay, so that's the concept that really shows the relationship and actually the progression of how things are going, and essentially we're getting better and better in each one of this area, and I think this kind of meant to give you a portrait of the AI landscape. And the other topic, the other concept that we're not capturing here, but I think this kind of really summarizes that the general concept. So it's important when people hear this term, they know what we're talking about. Now, let me quickly talk about the LLMs. So the LLMs, large language model, is because they are large. When I said at the beginning that when I was doing my master's, we used to do machine learning, and we used to have models, just like but they used to be domain specific. Domain specific meant that if I wanted a recommender system, like for instance, Netflix system to recommend you movies, those are called recommender system. I would have to train a specific model to do that. If I wanted something to do image recognition, I'd have had to do a specific model to do that. If I wanted something to do language translation, if I put Swahili, it translates to French and English, I'll have to train a model specifically for that. So they were domain specific, and they were small. Okay, they were small. Now, this large language model, what they did is they fed the entire known knowledge, all the stuff into the computers, and they have parameters, parameters that runs into billions. And when they're talking about parameter, think about if I want to represent you as a person, I could say the name, the first name, last name, gender, skin color, eye color, whatever it is, all those attributes from a parameter. You can imagine a parameter that represents an entity that runs into billions, or hundreds of billions. It's a lot of stuff. And that's what these things are able to do. And that's part of the magic why we're seeing the stuff we're seeing, is the fact that we have these models that are running on massive amount of data that it is inconceivable. And that's the reason you're finding the magic. So you no longer need a specific model for image recognition. If I go to ChatGPT, I can type something in English, and I'm not tried, and it's probably going to translate into Kikuyu or the other way around. I can do image recognition, I can do video generation, I can do code production. They are all encapsulated in a single model. So what used to be separate domain-specific model are all one together now, and that's the magic of large language models.
Rumba, that was good, man. I've always tried to understand, large language models, but I think what I'm taking away was where at some point in time, we were restricted by parameters, let's just say, and the ability to expand beyond the domain-specific parameters. But now, because of the technology, and I'll go back to when I told you the stuff that I do, when we talk about these machines, right? I have a chip that I'm putting into a machine, and then that machine I'm saying will be part of what we call a machine learning pod, and that pod then will give you the artificial intelligence. It is not a single machine. For that model to be generated, for all of that information to be learned by these machines, you're putting together sometimes hundreds of machines working as one. So when you think about intelligence, it's not just one machine that has developed such deep learning. It's the concept of multiple machines, and in some cases, thousands of machines working as one machine to be able to compute and not to burn out while computing. So I want to open it up to questions, but before I do so, I'm going to challenge you, Kehumba, because you said this machine knows everything, but over the past few weeks or so, I've done different experiments. I asked it It's not very clear here, but I said, create an African map with the following countries highlighted. And I said, Kenya, Ghana, Rwanda, Senegal. I put this in the Facebook, and it put Kenya over here. And then I tried it again, it put Kenya here. Then I tried it again, it put Kenya here. So it's just all over the place, putting Kenya all over the place. Then I said, okay, maybe this machine is biased against Africans. So I came to the US and said, generate a map of the United States, and I gave it some southern states. And it labeled 2 states out of the 5 that I requested, and it put them in a completely different place. Then I said, okay, maybe it doesn't know geography, but it should know me. I took a picture of myself and said, could you create an image of me at 25, what I looked at 25? And this is the image it created. I even had to make it black and white because of how white the image was, right? And this is how I looked at 25, right? Whereas in Google Photos, it can go and can recognize me as a 5-year-old child and know that it's me. But in Gemini, it just could not come up with the output. So I'll put that over here for a second and then just open it up in case people have questions, because we've talked a lot about some stuff. Then we'll come back and revisit what could the issues be over here. So I see we have Judy. Hey, Sessa, how are you? We have Mushunu is here, Kipiro is here, Mbuvi family is here. So I see some people here. So does anyone have questions? Are free, and there's no question that's a question.
Actually, have yes. Mine is not a question. Mine is more of a comment. I was in Atlanta recently. Last month, I came for a big prayer conference. You mentioned Waymo, so we're staying at the Hilton downtown. So I went on Uber. I said, let me order Uber. And then this Waymo comes. Instead of coming to us, Waymo went somewhere else. So I was telling my friends, because we all came from Houston, from my church. And then so we had to order, somebody else now had to order Lyft. When you're on the traffic, right, the downtown, then my friend says, but even in Houston, downtown, we have Waymo. I said, you're kidding. That was my first time to see that. But sometimes maybe AI does not work or it delays. I like the fact that it's easy. It makes things simpler and faster. But in our case, it did not come for us. It went somewhere else. So I just wanted to share that. I thought that was funny when you mentioned Waymo.
Yeah, so I don't know, Kehumba, Dr. Uma, why would Waymo go somewhere else? Why would I get a white man representing me 25 years ago?
Yeah, thank you. So maybe I say something here, that there are limitations to AI. And limitation is example of what you said about placing Kenya to the right place in Africa, or whatever the country, or trying to say who you are when you are 25. It looks like you are white. I don't know what happened to you. But these are because of the limitation. Remember, AI depends on data that is fed. It learns from the data that's being fed. And so it also lacks common sense. It doesn't. So as much as people saying, they want to be like us, those are artificial. They're not natural. We were born with natural intelligence. And so there are things that can never be replaced. So they don't have common sense. They're limited to a lot of many things, like, the data that has been fed into them. There's also local context gaps, which are sometimes to happen. So for example, I have been referred to a lady by ChatGPT, how I didn't understand how they decided somewhere that and so there are so many limitations. So I think it's because of the limitation. And of course, these are technology sometimes, can break down. There could be other challenges, either technical or non-technical, that may affect. And so, yes, as much as trying to make it faster, easier, but again, we do appreciate that there are also limitations, and those limitations could be because of they cannot have that artificial. They don't have natural intelligence. That is artificial. Artificial is not natural. It can never be the same as natural. So I believe that is one of the challenges that we have to live with. But the benefit are far way much better than the the challenges that come with it. Of course, those challenges will always keep on existing. One thing I like about AI is that there are many ways of how they're trying to improve, especially when it comes to hallucination, where it's giving you those information. So there are many being powerful, compute system and all that. There are many ways to minimize. It never be eliminated, but there are many ways I think right now people are working to make sure that those challenges are minimized. Yeah.
Yeah, Ichi, let me add into that because I think what Thomas said, that's true. And the point I would want to make is people not to let the current limitation of AI fool them to thinking that this is not a serious technology. It is a serious technology, and what people need to understand that this is a technology that is at its infancy, very early stages. And we are impressed with it, and is almost being impressed with their child in the first 6 months. So what people need to realize is if it can be decently good this early, and knowing that human being will get better with time, we improve technology with time, and it's improving not in years, we're improving AI in months. I can tell you the way ChatGPT was operating in January and the way it is operating today are two different products. That's how fast it's moving. So people should not say, oh, this, and this is unfortunately what's going on. There are people, because when ChatGPT came, there was a lot of vibe about it. People went, tried out, they got this bad hallucination, and they're like, man, this thing is crap. And that is their perception about AI, and they're not bothered about it anymore. It has since moved out from that. It's good, but it's not perfect, but it's going to improve, and it's going to be good. So it might be of Lion King, where they had it, Pumbaa, and they discovered the small lion, and the guy says, look how cute it is. The other guy says, you're an idiot, this is a lion. But then again, oh, this is very nice and cute. And then the other guy says it's gonna grow up to be a lion one day, it's gonna eat us, So I think what I'm saying, people should not be fooled and think that this technology cannot be good and be like I say. I think one of the things is people need to be on the guard. You really need to know, how can this technology impact me? One thing, and how can I harness it? And the only way you can do that is you have to be aware of its potential, and of course its limitation for now, and keep tab of that. But they are working day in, day out to overcome those limitations, and they will. And when I say they, it's as human beings, we will overcome those limitations.
If I may add also one more point, is that there's also misconception that we have. For example, that AI is always going to be right. No, it doesn't work that way. Also, people believe that it works the same everywhere. No. So what works for Atlanta may not be the same thing that we're going to work in Nairobi, because there are so many factors to be considered. And also that AI learns like human. We learn from experience. AI learns from data. So it's different. We don't learn from data, we learn from experience. There are also other challenges that, those misconceptions that, it's aware, it starts feeling, it thinks, it doesn't think. Mm-hmm. It calculates the probability, which is why you ask for a ride, it takes time to go to a wrong place, because the probability wasn't calculated rightly. So yes, it doesn't think, it doesn't feel. Even if you say, a human will say, is consciously aware that you're getting late, it needs to rush and do whatever it can take to get to your place, in good time. With AI, it doesn't think, it doesn't feel. Yeah.
And now, one more thing that pertaining to the picture you presented, which is another issue with AI, limitation of AI, but it's big, and we need to figure out, and especially Africa, the represented groups, is the bias. Okay, so AI is a computer at the end of the day that's data driven, So it's as good as the data it was trained on. So garbage in, garbage out. So if that data from the very beginning is biased, if that data represent or overrepresent one population versus the other, any query about that data about a group that is misrepresented is going to be inaccurate. Okay, and this is where we need to have a conversation on places like Africa, because if they don't or we don't take charge in making sure there's proper representation of the content, because at the end of the day is content driven. If our data doesn't feed the AI, then we are going to be underrepresented in that universe, and you're going to get the output that you're getting, where something that does not represent you is the output, because it is based on the data that you are not properly represented in that data. And I think that's the challenge. And then their effort, for instance, to represent African languages, African content. And I think when you're talking about, because you and I, when you say let's have this conversation, to me, the biggest question is how do we make sure that African continent does not get left behind, like it's been left behind in so many other technology, and especially this one that is moving very fast. It's moving very fast, and to address some of those issues is to make sure that there's equity in AI.
All right. I see we have some raised hands. Before I go to, I think movie families is coming up, but let me see some comments that Judy put. Judy said, what online courses can one take to become AI savvy? We'll talk about that. Kenya is ahead when it comes to AI. I have people using it in arbitration, medical field, etc. So we'll talk about that. I'm curious to hear about that. Before I turn it over to, I think Wande is onward a question. I did want to, both of you mentioned this word, okay? You mentioned hallucination. So I want to make sure I define what that is in the context of AI. So it's similar to a kid. When you ask a kid a question and they don't know the answer, instead of saying, I don't know the answer, they just create an answer and they tell you in such a compelling way that you believe them. So AI does that very well. You ask it a question, and if it has not been told, do not answer because it's a medical thing, it's a legal thing, it starts putting all the things that it knows in its head together and gives a fantastic explanation of something, but it is totally inaccurate. So that's what's called hallucination. Wendy, I think you were first, and then Keviro, and then Judy.
Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Ichi, Kihumba, and I think I just met Dr. Uma. Thank you for kind of your presentations and your perspectives. Certainly it is interesting times and certainly, kind of almost an exciting time, right? Myself, I'm not technical like you guys. I've never written a lick of code, but I have the privilege of working with technologists who are every day impacting kind of, the outcomes that we're all managing to. And that's just as critical, right, as the person who actually writes the code, etc. So mine was more of a comment to say, and I don't know, maybe you guys have some interesting perspectives here, is we have been used to managing businesses. I'm a business major and I run the business of technology where I work. What we call performance metrics were defined by different processes and different ways of working. So for me, I think the part that I'm finding really interesting and I'm really leaning into is, what does the workforce of tomorrow manage to? And I think AI is one of those things where you say there's very limited things. There's very few things that change management practice. And certainly what we're seeing coming out of AI is going to change everything about our workforce mixes, our financial forecasting, our contract management. I mean, so outside the code itself and what is the AI, what is the data, how are you classifying it? Outside those things, I think the implications on our lives and day-to-day performance metrics or even risk metrics are really going to change. And I don't think those have been defined yet. So we're leveraging AI more and more, but we're still managing to kind of still the old KPIs and KRIs. And so that for me, I find interesting. And so, always excited to engage with people who are working towards, okay, what does good look like, or what does great look like for the future? We don't know. I think it's still evolving. I think Humba and Ichi, just in closing, I did send you some very interesting content that I saw coming out of Dr. Ichi's back playground. I think Google is doing some really interesting things, especially in the African continent, and it's encouraging to see. But again, as we say, there are so many. Is it ChatGPT? Is it Claude? Is it Grok? Is it Gemini? Is it Copilot? I think we who are on this side of the user equation, we're actually getting quite confused now because there's so much choice. And I guess choice is a good thing. So again, not really a question from my perspective, just more, I am on the curious side of things and understanding that, curiosity is not enough at this point. We have to lean in because things are about to change and change in a big way. So, not a question, just my viewpoint on where things are going to, where do I play in this conversation?
So I think, thank you so much. Your perspective, that was really good and framed really well. And 3 weeks ago, I was meeting with Georgia legislatures, educators, and that's exactly what they were talking about. What does the future look like? We had technologists, educators, legislatures, like I said, and everyone was talking about how do we prepare the workforce now? How do we prepare students now for work 20 years from now when we don't even know what it looks like, right? And so there's a number of things that they're putting in place, some going through legislation so that they can say every student who graduates high school must have done and passed a computer science course, things like that. Performance management, KPIs, are those changing? Yeah, some things are going to be measured a little bit different than they are today. And some of that is in that sort of like unknown box. But I wanted to bring up two things that are critically important for us to know for everyone before I go to Kevito for his question. People, Kewumba said, some people think they don't have to, I'll use the Kenyan term, to board, right? I'm not boarding. No, you got to board, right? Some of us who, I know some of you quite well. I know we share the same memories of 1991, aka we remember what 1991 was, right? Remember what it was like. We can even talk about the songs that were there. But do you know that's when the internet was made public? Like when you think about it, before 1991, and for me, frankly, probably 95 or 96 was my first instance of the internet as we know it today. But now accelerate 30 years. And what has this thing enabled that it wasn't built for, but it has been enabled, that it has enabled things that it wasn't built for, right? The second thing this came out, it was in our Mind Valley discussion. And I think, Wandia, the video you sent me of what Google is doing seconded this. There's a study that was done 2 years ago to compare physicians and artificial intelligence responses to patients. So in other words, you're a patient, you're calling the physician, you talk to the physician, and you rate your satisfaction with the way that communication happened. And then you correspond with a chatbot on a medical issue, and you rate your interaction with a chatbot. Guess what? It turns out people were more satisfied with the interaction with artificial intelligence than they were with the physician. That's where we are now, because behaviorally, Wandia, you may think that we need to learn how to interact with these things, but we are doing what we did with www. We're naturally kind of falling into place. I find myself asking Gemini, beyond asking it what I should wear, which I've done, by the way. I'm going for dinner, what should I wear? It tells me. Sometimes I tell it I'm stressed. I'm like, hey, Gemini, I'm stressed by my job. What should I do? And it responds, I like what Dr. Uma said, with probability of what I want to hear. Don't be stressed. Think about all the things that are stressing you. Break them down into different tasks. Breathe, right? But it gives me the therapy from millions of therapists that I would be paying thousands of dollars for one therapist, right? The second thing I want to bring up is when we did the session, and I'll make this so much clear when I send it to you, but let me read it out. Most AI education is designed for people who build AI, not the 95% who need to use AI. So Judy, going to your question also, do I need to pay thousands of dollars to learn AI, prompt engineering, all about LLMs? Do I need to learn that? It's like me saying in 1996, everyone should learn how to build a website. No, there's those people who learned how to build websites. There's those people who learned how to code. Then there's those people who took advantage of websites and coding to become more productive. So as we think about, okay, I'm going to take the first class on AI, you'll be paying for CG, Python, CG, deep learning, all these things Kehumba has mentioned, and you're not even that type of person, right? So I'll rest there, and then Kehumba, I know you had, Kiviro, you had a question. You had your hand up. Could you please, what was on your mind?
Yeah, good evening, everyone, and thank you, Ichi, for putting this together. Thank you, Dr. Oma and Kehumba, for the information. Actually, I have so many questions, but I'm just going to try and make a compound one because when you talk, okay, Dr. Oma said that AI is data working together to make predictions. And from previous technologies, we've had discoveries that helped humans perform more efficiently. But now we have technology that's going to use our data to make future predictions without our input. I think he spoke about generative AI. Now, for an everyday person, and in like the civil rights movement led to DEI, which was scrubbed by the current administrations, meaning that you will have a set of people making decisions that become law that define our future without necessarily our input. So if it means for me to maybe interact with AI as much as possible so that I'm included in future decisions, how does that look like? And also in an era where you have companies that are using data to achieve astronomical valuations, that is Nvidia, Facebook, Google, then how do I capitalize on my information input to also be able to benefit and profit from that? And yeah, so how am I supposed to interact with AI so that I can also benefit from the valuation as well as my perspective and like special groups being included in the future of AI or the future of community? And finally, how does human interaction look like when so many decisions are going to be made by AI? I know it's a lot, but I'll actually try to compress it, those more.
Okay. So let me try to answer part of what I can be able to answer. Now, I want to mention from what Dr. Ichi said, that there are consumers who are 95%. Now, Ichi mentioned about building websites. We drive cars, we are the consumers. Do you know how to make cars? We don't, and we don't have to. So the focus would be on the users, not knowing how to build. Now, the reality is AI is with us and it's not stopping anytime soon. The best thing, which amesema, body. That is what I would tell everyone. Learn it. You have to be part of it. If companies are making, those figures, huge amount of money, as a consumer, what can you do to be part of this? There are big organizations using big AI or large language models, and then there are those organizations that are small, you can benefit. And one of them is very smart AI, which is more specialized into supporting immigration journeys for everyone. Now, everyone would need at least those small ones and those big LLMs, because small ones would be more dedicated to a specific task, which means they will learn fast, become more efficient than large ones, which may take time to learn everything. Now, our human interaction, even me, I don't know. I bet even Ichi and Kihumba, they don't know. No one knows. And that's why we can just take a precaution. Like Ichi said, they had a meeting and say that every high school student should be able to learn at least computer science. Now, these things or these models are getting smarter. They're learning from each other. Now, but the fact is they're learning from data. So for example, they can be trained in a way that if you do this and it matches this, then learn from it, that's the correct answer. If you do this and this is the result, it doesn't work, then that is X. Now, it can be able to learn. And even now, even have more complex problems which they can be able to solve from what they have learned. An example is, if 1 + 1 gives you 2, then that's a correct answer. Anything which is 2, which is not 2, it's a wrong answer. Then you can say 1 + 3, you can even continue doing 1 + 4, 1 + 7, and that's how they learn. Now, the future is just like nobody knows. But we are excited because it helps us solve big main problems, for example, medical problems, predicting diseases, diagnosis those diseases, getting drugs available. So there are many, many benefits. The best you can do is not be left behind, be part of it. Thank you.
Ishila, let me comment on this issue of leveraging AI. I think that's how to put it, and how do we use it? I think you and I last time I told you, I think part of what, for me, I'm pushing for is what I call going beyond chatbots. This is a powerful tool. And I think we need to get from the mindset of just being a consumer of it. I think, unfortunately, we tend to be just consumers of things that other people make and not the makers of things that other people consume. That's the only way we're going to be able to take full advantage of the technology and make wealth out of it. Instead of people just spending time chatting with ChatGPT and getting whatever you put a prompt, get stuff out. There's so much that can be done with this technology to literally create wealth. And I think when I think about the youth in Africa, the potential, the intelligence, the hunger to do stuff, they can do so much with AI, because the beauty about the AI, it levels the playing ground in some sense. Let's take, for example, coding. Okay, coding is not there yet, but you can do a lot of programming with AI. You can do a lot of prototyping. I mean, the stuff can give you a lot of idea that you don't even need in it, and then you just need to work through it. There are a lot of people that are very creative, and LLMs are extremely good with content. And I think people who are creative, they need to use it to create content, meaningful content that they can monetize. And those are the conversations we need to have, and that's the empowerment we need to have, especially with the AI people. What you need to learn about the AI is depend on what your end goal is. If you just want to be somebody, you want to use it for productivities, enhancing your emails, feedback, and those are basic stuff, low-hanging fruit that the tools are already there. But then if the people now we're talking about starting to harness the technologies for bigger gains, I think we need to we need to figure out how to do that. And that, to me, what I want to advocate for. We are not just consumers of these technologies. We are people that are literally using it to create product. Going back to the question Wadia brought up earlier on, like we said, this is a technology that infancy, there's so much that's still going to happen. One of the things that I totally believe is going to happen and I think Ichi told you about this, is you talked about the internet. When the internet came by, we all of a sudden started, everything was internet based. Okay, we moved from whatever, analog, whatever it was, to internet based, and we had to transition a lot of things to internet based. AI is another way, and a lot of things are going to be AI based. Now, the internet, the presence of an internet created a lot of opportunity for transition stuff that were previously on, and we're still doing that. There's still a lot of things that are still kind of being transitioned to the internet. At this point, I think they're overtaken by event. You probably need to skip the internet, although the AI is based on the internet anyway. But I think a lot of things that we know today are going to end up being AI based. Even business processes, business processes that we know, we used to do accounting on spreadsheet and move them to software, and a lot of forms that we do. The traditional software concept is based on structured data, where the data has to be in certain field, well structured, your name, your first name, date of birth, whatever it is, and you end up, the computer could never understand unless you give it in that structured format. Now, AI does not need that. It's natural language. This is the same way I'm speaking. I can speak to AI. So do we really still need those old school software systems that are based on structured data that has a lot of form? You don't need to do that. And I've written up that circumvent that, and you can clearly tell that you can just use natural language. And so I see opportunity to do a lot of business processes have to transition from the old internet-based structured data to AI-based, natural language-based data, and I think that is yet to happen. Now, providing solution for those transitions, it's still going to require some knowledge. It's still going to require, software engineers. And again, every time I meet some young people that are doing computer science, I tell them, or software engineering, please don't think of the software engineering the way you used to do it when I did it. That old software engineering is no longer be the case. If you're not thinking of AI-based solution, application development, you're living in the past, and you are most likely not going to be hired by anybody. First of all, AI can replace a lot of software programmers, and people are still skeptical of that, but I can tell you it is going to displace a lot of them. And I think the only people that are going to benefit out of that are those people who can pivot, use that knowledge. One, because you're already knowledgeable about software development, you can actually use AI to create meaningful product, meaningful app that can solve problem, and you can monetize that. If it's not you're monetizing at least you can sell your skill to corporations that really need people to start transitioning the world to that. So I think, again, I think we need to advocate for people to use AI for higher level, not just using it to typing stuff on chatbot and getting response back. There's a lot more that this technology has to offer.
Thank you, Kigumba. Judy and then Cesar. Judy, you have your hand up.
I was trying to unmute myself.
Okay.
So I want to tell you, like I see here, yeah. I wanted to say, Dr. Kihumbo, I don't know how long ago you were in Kenya, but do you know Kenya is so ahead because they use the Vodafone, they use more the English telephony than America. America is behind when it comes to technology, when it comes to phones and things like that. Even computer, Kenya is ahead. Now, why I wanted to join today is because this week on Monday we had a discussion, and some guy in a creatives group, by the way, I'm with a group of creatives in Kenya, people like Chris Kamau, and we were discussing AI and the Bible. I'm an evangelist. I've been for the last 21 years. And so this guy, this white American, say that, AI is going to be good for the Bible because it's going to make it easier to find certain things in the Bible. Then I told him not so. I said, for me, I use Bible Gateway. Bible Gateway, you can actually do a word search on Bible Gateway. It was going to tell you exactly what you're looking for. It's in the Bible. So for me, why I asked the question about AI and I want to become savvy in AI, And as Ichi says, you don't have to do all of it, but I want to know which one do I do, because I've been evangelist for the last 21 years, and I've been a pace setter in using technology. When people in Kenya were not using technology, I would go to churches in Kenya, I do a big PowerPoint, I do technology, I use it to my advantage. So I want to leverage AI and use it to my advantage before people who don't mean well for the Christians to come and distort the Bible and do things that are going to misinterpret the Bible. So for me, it's more on a missionary-based learning, and also monetize it. If I could monetize it, and one of the guys said, churches are using AI to write sermons and to create Bible-based studies. If I could monetize it, why not? So for me, as someone who is a scholar of the Bible, and I'm an evangelist, I've been for the last 21 years, that is why I want to learn AI, to monetize it, but also not to distort what is in the Bible as the truth. Thank you. And Kenya is ahead, by the way, in arbitration. Ichi. Jackie uses AI. Jackie, you know Jackie,
Yeah.
my
Of
sister.
course, I know you. Of course, I know your sister.
Yeah, so that's why I mean, yeah, they're way ahead. Don't be sub. Kenya is not gonna. Africa is not gonna be left. Kenya is the tech of Africa. If you did not know, we have Konza City. Kenya is way ahead. But I like what you say, that it needs to be translated to maybe vernacular, so even people in the village can also learn, you know, and not be left behind. But Kenya is not gonna be left behind. Kenya is the hub of IT in Africa.
You know, I have a lot to say about that, but I won't, because Dr. Uma was in Konza in November. We've talked to a lot of tech people in Kenya. Kihumba, this is something he's very passionate about. So I'll pass the mic to them shortly to talk specifically about that.
But thank you very much, everybody. Thank you so much.
Of course. Here's what I would say. As you start utilizing AI more, things will start becoming more apparent about what you can use it for. Like you gave an example of, let's say, a sermon, right? So in my mind, the thing that popped in my mind was, okay, hey, Gemini, I'm an evangelist. I want to write a program for the next 12 months that can take what are current issues in Nairobi, use the Bible, whatever version it is, sort through the Bible, figure out what themes that I will preach every week, and give me information and then shorten it to a speech for 8 minutes, right? Something which would have taken you a long time, even though you know the Bible, you'd have been like, is that Ecclesiastes or Psalms, right? Yeah. And then, I don't know what's happening currently, right? I'd have to read the news, watch CNN, and then try and correlate, right? So when you're thinking about massive amounts of information, and most importantly, you want to get insights from that information, I think that's where, it could help you in ways that you probably wouldn't have been able to before.
And you said Gemini, right?
Gemini or ChatGPT. I'm a Gemini because I'm a Google person, but other people would argue different.
Okay.
Kihumba and Dr. Uma, the issue of, is one more advanced than the other? I have very strong opinions about that because of, there's Nairobi, then there's Kenya. You know what I mean? There's there's Nairobi and there's Kenya, and there's infrastructure availability. There's the stigma of learning AI. There's a lot of things, conditions, and systems that probably we need to work on for us to be able to say, yeah, Kenya is doing really good in AI. But
no, but compared to America, I'm telling you, Kenya is not in the dark.
Yeah.
Ichi.
Don't be surprised.
Thank you so much. I would want to respond, but I would do it indirectly. First, I want to look at, start from what Kihumba said, that AI has a lot to offer. And so when we are saying not to be left behind, don't just be a consumer. Of course, Ichi, checking, helping you, like more therapy, knowing you're stressed out of it because of work. Yeah, there's no way, that's more consuming, right? But also, if you can be able to monetize, like my sisters talk about there, do it. Now, let me talk about how, AI is impacting on Africa and maybe, to Kenya, is that there's so many ways you can monetize AI, or you can use it to your advantage. So, for example, weather forecasting is helping farmers to be able to plan. So, in agriculture, people are already using AI to forecast the weather, predict all that, to can be able to use that to their advantage. Now, I talked about healthcare, screening, diagnosing diseases and all that. It's already doing that. So if you're a doctor, for example, you can use AI to your advantage. You know, eh, learn about it, create some app that can support your work as somebody who's in healthcare. Now, already tutors or people in education, they're trying to use personalized messages, learning paths to support what they're doing. This is happening right here in US, and I believe somewhere in Kenya or in Nairobi, it happens. Government is already doing, they have a lot of strategies. I think we worked on a paper, it was, I don't know, AIIC or ICTAC or something, strategy that was being, launched. Universities already, promoting the use of AI and geared toward data science, data analytics, as well as anything that relates to AI. There are many startups, many organizations that are, advocating. Shiko, I wish she was here. We attended, recently a conference in DC called Village, Africa Village, which is talk about advancing and the issue of adopting AI into Kenyan system of Africa. So I think already we are doing a lot. I may not be able to tell you today that Kenya is far ahead of US,
Yes.
because as far as I'm concerned, it's not true. It's debatable. It's not true. But I think we are doing a lot.
Yes.
As I've been to other Africa countries. I've seen those conferences. I think in Africa we are in a good position. We are placed better than most of the countries. But I think we still have a lot to do. We still have a long way to go. Now the question is, we who are already here, what are we doing? And before we started, already we had a small conversation with the three of us, talking about what we're already doing. I'm happy that even before I came to America, Cuba was already doing something. When I came to America, I started doing something. And then one of the reasons why we met with Ichi Atlanta, we've done a lot. We got as a conference. We are doing to enhance, to support people who want to, get into tech, want to, AI for personal use, and to be able to create a niche and get some income out of it. That's what we're doing, sharing knowledge, and this is what advancing of what we're doing. So I think we're doing well. We still have a long way to go, but we're in the right path. Thank you.
Ichi, let me make a quick comment on Judy. The way I would say, for all of us, at the very least, we should be using AI as a productivity tool. Okay, if you use Microsoft, they used to call it Microsoft Office. Okay, I mean, they actually what they call the productivity software, your Word document, your Excel, your PowerPoint. Those are tools that before, like we said, before the internet, before the software, we used to do them manually. They came by, they're supposed to, nothing magical. It's the same thing you used to do, keep data, write. We used to write, but to write with a pen, but now we can, keyboard and all that, and it's supposed to make us more efficient and more productive. Now, AI is multiple times more powerful of any productivity, software out there. So the very least, each one of us should be using it, on a day-to-day basis for that purpose. Just a very basic level, depending on what you do. Like you say, you're doing sermon, it can prepare for you. Just need to tell it what topic you want, and it'll do that. The only thing I'll caution you on is, remember the concept we talked about, hallucination. You never want to take whatever AI gives you and run with it. You really want to pay attention to it. When I do my presentation training, one of the things I tell people at the beginning, the way to imagine AI, and this is something I normally use when we're talking about prompt engineering and chain of thought, like really how do you really prompt AI to give you the best output? That's another issue, and maybe issue we can talk about that. The way I like people to make people imagine of AI is this imaginary PhD level intern alongside you all the time. Okay. So when I say PhD level, they know a lot. The key thing, the first key thing is you're using them, but most of us intern or PhD level, you're trained on a particular area of expertise. Okay. But LLMs know everything. So, but for it to be very good at what you want it to do, you always have to tell it what it is that moment. You're now acting as my doctor, you're now acting as my accountant, you're now acting as my pastor, whatever it is. That is very important. It's called giving it the context. But think of it that way. So you have this PhD trained person that's with you all the time that can help you with a lot of stuff. You know, just even like if you have a business idea, if you ask AI to give you a business plan, and I don't know, you know, first of all, what you get out of it is all depending on what level. And the basic free version of AI, they don't have a lot of features. I normally use paid AI, and right now you have what they're calling the agents. The agents are the ones that are doing a lot of stuff. ChatGPT just came up with it the other day. Before ChatGPT, there's a AI company based off China. It's called Manas. Manas actually never even had a regular chat. It started as an agent. It's the only AI that really had an agent. You only give it a task, and the task can run for hours. You just give it a task, you walk away, and they are extremely detailed. And when you see the output of what they give you sometime, you're like, I would have taken 5 consultants to come up with that information. And because they're agents, they actually have very little hallucination, because what they do research real time. They go to website, they put information, so they're not based on the training. They're actually, that's the reason why they're called agents. They're actually gathering information the same way you'd have told somebody, go to this website, find out about this thing, and write me a report. You know, they can do it, but they can go to 100 websites in 20 minutes, which no human being can do that. They're extremely powerful. And those are the things, like even from a productivity perspective, like if you're planning a business and you ask it to come up with a business plan, business analysis, cost analysis, revenue projection, all those things, it actually can do a pretty decent job. Now, should you run away with that? No, you need to validate, but it is take you a long way to get there. So at the very least, we should be using AI for productivity. For that purpose, it's a lot it can do for you that make you more productive, more efficient. And then the next level where now you start really doing serious stuff with it.
Thanks, Kirumba. And I think that's one of the action items for today for everyone. Start using it on a daily basis. So for me personally, I'll tell you what I do. Everything on my machine, because I use a lot of Google products, has a little star at the top called Gemini. I click on that, it opens up a box, and I ask for information. On my phone, I have Gemini app. You can go to gemini.google.com. And by doing so, then you can start putting information just to start fearing it less. Kivito, I want to come to you soon because I want to make sure we answered your questions. But Sessa, welcome to Wezesha. You're on.
Thank you. I thought I was going to forget what I wanted to say, and then I realized that actually what you just said, Dr. Kihumba, is what I was going to ask a comment on. So thank you, Ichi, for this. Thank you, Dr. Kihumba and guest speakers. So first of all, I wanted to build on Wandia's comment. Wandia, hi, good to hear you. You mentioned about performance metrics and KPIs. Mine's not really a question. I just was going to throw a couple of points and ask what your thoughts were on it. And the thing about performance metrics is really interesting because I'm in digital transformation and process and operations, and we're doing some new digital transformation and discussions about when we use just kind of rule-based logic or AI, or actually take on agents, leveraging agentic solutions. So how do I measure my new agents? And do I do a percentage of hallucinations in 1 month or something like that? So that, I thought that was that was an interesting comment, Wandia, about how do I reset my KPIs and my performance metrics? So interested about that. But So I had a couple of other comments. What I thought of, there's a lot of discussion around ownership of the data that AI uses to absorb its knowledge, to learn, to gain its intelligence. And I know there's a lot of discussion about that. And even as we sign contracts, there's a lot of information about what you can upload to anything that's AI kind of based. So I wondered what your opinion was on that. And my other thing was about prompt engineering, but you just talked about it, Dr. Kihumba. So I won't really go into that, other than to say my experience is that AI is not taking over what you know, which is what a lot of people think. Like, I'm not going to need to know anything now. I can just be a dumb idiot and I can just ask AI. You really need to get the best responses, know how to effectively prompt engineer your input so that you can get some kind of sensible response and know whether it's responsible or not. So those were just a couple of things I was going to throw in for the discussion. And thank you.
Thanks, Cesar. But I do want to mention a couple of things that I've seen with, at least in our company, with the culture of AI, right? So what's happening now is a lot of teams are starting to put together all these tech talks about how to be more productive at work, right? So they're becoming native AI teachers. So someone will create a talk saying, how can you use AI for project management, and design a class, and then people will come and listen. But the other thing that I started seeing recently is people using AI for their own performance reviews. So it goes something like this. Performance review time is coming. You go into all your documents and you tell Gemini to look at all your projects and the input that you've provided in these projects, the outcomes that you've had in the profile, and then write a performance review for you to share with your manager. And in some ways, Cesar, when you said we're just, we don't want to become dumb people just like using AI, that's exactly what's happening. Is people are now not writing performance, because typically we'll ask you, tell me the 3 things that you did over the past quarter and the impact it had relative to your role profile and what you're supposed to be doing. And you're having AI write that stuff for you, right? So there's a culture where, depending on the company you work in, I would argue, allows for you to explore using AI. We use Notebook LLM, which is basically where we can all go and consolidate information that you've learned about your job into this notebook, and other people do the same thing, and that becomes a playbook for someone. So my point is, humans do not seem like they just sit back. It almost feels like humans start saying, oh, what can I use this for? How can I advance this? How can I start leveraging this? And they start building upon it. And then suddenly you have a use case that no one thought of because we were restricted by the guardrails we had. So as we look to the future, part of what we have to do is embrace this culture of adaptability and of AI, right? Of using AI to be able to take risks with things that we didn't have permission to do. Which brings me to what I think we need to discuss next week, which is, in my company, there's no stigma in doing that. Okay? I went to, 2 weeks ago when I was at the legislative session, they were talking about all these schools where they're teaching kids how to use AI, or best use of AI. Okay? Now, I want you to contrast that with other marginalized communities, underrepresented communities, where you're being penalized for using AI. Think of a school, Dr. Uma, where you come from, the rural village you came from, Kihumba, the rural village you came from, even me, a city guy, some of the schools I went to, where the stigma choose AI. There's no cultural allowance for you to play around with AI. That creates that, I wish Dr. Guitar was here, but there's a gap, there's a penalty for not being in that culture of AI. So Cesar, as I'm hearing you talk, Wandia, as you're talking, Judy, as you're hearing you talk, there's a profound difference between those who have now become, have embraced AI in the culture of AI and can therefore cultivate learning with it, versus those who were saying, if you use AI, you'll get zero. Don't use AI because of hallucinations. And I think that therein lies the gap between us and Kenya. So I don't even know where I was going with that discussion, but I thought that was interesting. The other thing I wanted to mention in terms of metrics. So I'm having coffee and this lady comes and, you know, she's a mentee of mine, and she's a power scientist. Dr. Uma, she's a power scientist. So I said, what's a power scientist? What does that do? And she said, well, so remember when I described what that machine looks like and that chip looks like? Her day-to-day is to maximize the amount of computation that chip can handle without the entire board burning. So that's her day-to-day stuff, is this chip, how much more instructions can I give without the entire thing burning? That's her day-to-day work. That job did not exist, but now it exists because of how powerful the processing has to be. So as we think about jobs going away, and we can talk about it next week, there's a lot of jobs that are going to be introduced as a function of supporting AI. Kehumba, I'll give it to you, but I also Kefiro, I want to make sure, I know you asked a number of questions. How do you feel about the answers? Was there something you still want to know about? So think about that while Kehumba, take it away, you know, matrix, fear, culture of AI.
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot. I'm trying, okay. So trying to remember what do you want me to respond to initially? And there's a number of questions, stuff on the table.
So, you know, Cesar was talking about how do you measure an agent? How do you perform and measure an agent, right? Like, I know it's performing X things in Y hours. Now, this agent, how do I performance measure?
So it depends. Okay, so I don't know what whether the agent it's their own agent they have developed, or you know, if I go to ChatGPT or any other LLM and I use their agentic you know, version of the LLM, you know, the only way you can measure is look at what they gave you and feel like did they give you a good result, you know, that you're bound by whatever product they have. Now, all LLMs are not equal, and some of them are stronger on certain aspects than others. But remember, we talked of them as being LLM, and they can do so much. So they can do text, image, whatever it is. So you find some LLMs are extremely good. Text right now is basic. It's like primary school knowledge that any LLM should be able to handle decently. And then the map issue is a totally different one. We can always talk about that. But then when you get some of those specialized area, like let's say code generation, where you want to write your computer programming code, you know, some of them are good. Right now, the battle is between Anthropic, Claude, and ChatGPT. They just came out with ChatGPT 5 the other day. I saw a guy do an analysis, and you know, it all depends. You know, so you have to, again, depending on your use cases, you need to test different model. Don't be boxed to one model. Now, there's another challenge here. These things, which goes back to how do you make sure we're not left behind? When you look at, you know, these AI models, they're not cheap, especially to get the full power of it. You have to go to be in the paid tier. Now, I saw ChatGPT the other day, it's $100 a month. But there's a $20 a month for the basic, you know. I think you can still get the free, but when you have the free one, you're still missing a lot of power. you know, and it is important depending on what you're trying to do. If you're just doing basic tech stuff, you know, it might be sufficient. But if you're starting to get to serious stuff like programming, and then you find this is limiting. $20 a month is a lot of money. So for people in other part of the world, and that's an access issue. And those are the things we're talking about. Granted, I think China is offering alternative. They have a lot of open source model that maybe are not charging as much. But as we have this conversation, we really have to seriously talk about, again, how do we not make sure that this technology is accessible in places where people cannot dedicate $20 a month, or even $100 a month. Like, if we want our young people to be able to do serious stuff with AI, okay, that is only, you can only do that with access to the powerful version of the AI that requires you to pay the subscription services. You know, how do we do that? And I think those are broader conversation, which is the reason I'm saying that, you know, government, and I'm seeing African government, Kenya has, I think, 2025, 2030 AI policy framework. They just, I guess, released this year. Nigeria, the same last year, South Africa and such. I don't know, I'm not read through that, but, you know, I think I'm hoping that they're going to really focus on some of these aspects. But when it's come to the agentic, just going to the, you know, if you're making your own agentic application or workflow, then the only way to make it for you to ensure it is giving it the right thing, you have to build in what you call the evaluation. You can have a testing, you know, to validate what it's giving you. And just like you do a software, for those who develop software, you have you do tests for software to make sure it's doing the right thing. The beauty about it is actually one way of testing it is actually using LLM itself to test its own output, and it actually can do a very decent job. But again, those are the concepts I'm talking about. When you start doing AI application development, you can literally build your own agents, and it's not that complex to do that. And if you're going to build your own agent that can run an entire business process, you can build validation within the workflow, and it will test the output of that. If you're using a proper framework, you should be able to do that. And I think if you have your own agent, you certainly have to do that to guarantee that your agent is doing the right thing. So, yep.
Dr. Uma, what are your thoughts? I want to do something here. While you give us some of your wrap-up thoughts, I want to do something for the people over here.
Okay. So yeah, so we talked about how you can use AI to help you build something that can help you generate income. But again, I think we also look at how are you affected if you're employed. How is AI going to affect you as a person who is employed? And I think I just want to say this: there are many misconceptions, misinformation about jobs being taken away by AI. For me, I think job will not disappear; they will evolve. So if you are able to combine human intelligence or judgment with AI efficiently, then you will thrive. Jobs will shift. Many jobs will be created. I think World Economic Forum gives statistics that in the next 5 years, there will be about 95 million jobs created versus 81 that will go. So there will be more jobs created. And so I think it's that you just keep on learning. Be sure that you're learning every new thing. You're aware of what's happening around you. If need be, try to learn something outside what you already know. That will help you have more competitive edge over the other people. And of course, I think the most important fundamental thing is AI is for good. Like, it will help us, whether you're working as an employee, whether you are starting a business, whether you're using for your own consumption, it's good for all of us. And I think I look forward to continuing having this conversation and talk more. Like somebody mentioned, what are the skills that you need to have? A number of them, and I think we're going to have more sessions. More time to discuss more of that in the next session. Otherwise, thank you so much for having me, Dr. Ichi. Pleasure meeting Kihumba, and looking forward to again meeting in the next session.
So before we go, so I hope everyone can see my screen over here. So I'm going to do a little exercise. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say, let's see, I'm going to say gemini.google.com. And so that's what it brings up. I say no thanks. I will say this is a version of Gemini. It's called 2.5 Flash, so it might have some things that other Gemini doesn't have. So, I'm curious, what question should I ask it? Because I want to make sure that as we leave here, Kefiro, Judy, Cesar, everyone can see something about what this thing is capable of. So, not you, Dr. Uma, not you, Kehumba, Judy, Cesar. In fact, we'll ask Cesar. Oh, yeah, Judy. What do you want to ask?
Can I get? I'm a 45-year-old man. Can I marry a 55-year-old woman?
Can I marry a
55-year-old woman? Yes.
Old woman. That's of all the questions AI is capable of. Kiwumba told me it's a PhD intern. This is what you want to ask. Okay.
Yes,
Can you guys see the screen okay, or is it muddled a little bit? Yeah, let's see what it says. Yes, a 45-year-old man, you can legally marry a 55-year-old woman in the United States. Marriage laws, and then it goes into the legal issue. So I think perhaps
that's why I asked that question.
I thought you were going to say something like, what is your interpretation of Moses in the burning bush?
No, that one is critical too.
No.
Don't interpret that. Hey, that was God.
I have a question on that. She didn't specify US. Why would Gemini pick and assume that she was talking about US?
That's right.
Very good, right? So at this point, I can tell it
based on his location, I think.
Bad response, and it goes back
from
to
your
what
IP.
Was saying. Yeah, it goes back to what Kihumba was saying, and Cesar, you sort of touched on it. My view is we do not have to be savvy in prompt engineering. The machine has to figure out how to prompt us and say, okay, tell me more about why do you want to marry this 55-year-old man or whatever, right? Imagine having a conversation with your girlfriend and you ask her, can I marry a 55-year-old man? And imagine what she'd ask you, right? So we want to make it, at least I think the fantasy was we would want to make it be conversational with us. But okay, Judy, your question, I don't like it. It is not the type of AI question we wanted. But let's see, Cesar.
No, it's fine. Actually, people should have fun with AI. Sometimes
that's why it was for fun.
It's entertaining. It just type, just weird stuff. You see, it give you weird responses. Because it will never tell you it has nothing to say.
That's why I asked that question.
My
and again, for me, what I always do is to make sure that I ask to, verify the response, because all these things, like, Kiumba says, it never give you a no, unless it's legally not allowed to.
Yeah.
Okay, otherwise it will give you something. So, but when you ask, should it come from a verified source, or can you be able to cite the source of information that you're providing or response you're providing, then it will be able to give you more, accurate response.
Okay, I put here, I'm just simple language. I'm a digital transformation director, aka Cesar, and I want to measure how well my AI agents are performing. What are 3 to 5 good metrics to measure how well AI agents are performing? Kiumba, is that a fair am I okay with this prompt engineering, or do I need to add something extra?
No, that's actually really good. Remember what we talked about? That is, saying your digital transformation director, that is actually very important, because now it knows, sometimes
Context.
being specific on the industry you're working with, like if you're in public sector, so when it crafts that response, it's more, instead of tapping into just the broader universe, it narrows down to that context. So that's what the prompt engineerings are for. It's getting irrelevant these days because they have improved the LLM so much that it's able
Yeah, I
to,
heard that actually.
yeah, initially when they came up, if you did not have a good prompt, it would just not give you a good answer. But if you're dealing with very complex question, it's always good to structure it very well. And the more the better. It's not the way we deal with human being, and you want to keep the question simple. For LLM, you want to keep the question comprehensive.
Okay, let's see what it says, right? So, as a digital transformation director at a beverage company, measuring the performance of your AI agents is crucial for demonstrating the value and ensuring, so it's reinforcing, making you feel good.
Yeah.
Okay. So here is what it's saying, says
Yes.
business impact and ROI,
Yeah.
cost savings, efficiency gains,
Efficiency. Yeah, labor
natural
costs.
benefit
Yeah.
of automation by comparing a process before and after AI implementation, FTE hours that have been saved, has the AI, so it's AI's ability to optimize a supply chain or manage logistics led to a reduction in fuel costs, right? So what are the micro KPIs against which the agents are performing? I like this
How
error
they
rate
measure that.
yeah. And then it goes on operational performance, user and customer experience. Yeah, AHT, total time for both a human and AI agent
Speed.
customer inquiry.
AHT.
Yeah.
It's got
And
quite a lot there actually.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Gemini, you guys think Gemini is okay, right? Dr. Home, I see you.
No,
See-
I'm not attached
see
to
you.
any. I'm only using what is commonly used by everyone. But I like I like how you're promoting.
What is commonly used by everyone, Dr.
We
Uma?
all know. Ask even how many people are using ChatGPT. Like I use ChatGPT every day. Yeah, not every like I don't know, every 1 hour.
Okay. I'm gonna take you back to history. Then I want Wandia to weigh in. Once upon a time, Internet Explorer was it. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. We all know who has them.
Yahoo, yeah, just even Yahoo. Yahoo was
the
one
Oh,
of the most,
yeah.
And then
No, use all
Yeah.
those. Try a different one for different use cases. Ishi, before you get out of this screen, can you tap on the tool, that tool thing down there? Because that's important for people to know. Can you tap on that tool? Okay, so you see it's offering you different stuff, video with, that. So depending on what you want to do, you want to select the tool. Now, typically, you shouldn't have, it should be able to triage based on the prompt and figure out what tool to apply, although you can pre-select that. Those are things that few months they were not there. You just used to be just the text box and you type your thing and, so you look at different LLM, they're offering a lot of tools. So sometimes you need to be specific that you see the different, like Deep's research is like if you have a question that you wanted to really spend more time, select that deep research. If you don't, it's going to just do basic response. So it's, again, try to, getting used to knowing how to use these tools is important in the LLM. Yeah.
Thank you. We are at time. Let me just do so everyone can see, if this is your first time using AI, as we call it, for me, it's just a prompt that I use through Gemini, gemini.google.com or Gemini app. Others use ChatGPT, and then you had other people talking about all these other ones. It's simply a matter of asking it. If anything, going to a Google prompt now and initiating a search automatically kicks AI in. It's giving you a lot more information. And if you have Google Workspace, summarizing meetings, taking meeting notes, I'm recording this. I used to spend hours curating this for a Facebook post. I promise you it's going to take me about 2 minutes to upload the entire thing. Of course, as Dr. Uma said, I'm going to check for context, but that's where productivity comes in. So before I wrap up, let me make sure. So Mushunu, you've been very quiet. Next time I'll call you out. Anto, I see you, Banambuvi. Cesar, thank you so much for joining and for your input. Judy, love it. We're going to monetize and make money out of this thing, so I'm very excited. Keviro, I know we're going to meet soon, but I'm curious if there's any last minute things that you want to ask, so I'll come back to you. Monga, thank you for joining. I have this recorded so you can review it when you have time. Steve Thiga, thank you for coming. Washington Amolo, thank you for joining. Do we have any last minute questions or any comments? Next week, I want us to focus on Africa. I want us to focus on education. Yes. I want us to focus on job transformation, what AI is going to do with job transformation. And then, of course, any questions that you guys may have based on today's session. But any last minute comments or questions?
I want to say something. Ichi, thank you so much for putting this together. Really, thank you so much at a time that we really needed it. Actually, this week, I had 2 interviews with AI. And that's what my comment was like. AI might eradicate some jobs, especially the certain parts of, shift. As Mr. Dr. Uma said, that was a good word, shift. Not eradicate, but shift. I like the way you say that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it was very rude to me. It cut me off twice.
You can use AI to help you get a job, huh? Just know that.
That's not what you go to school, man. That's what I learn, man. You gotta learn.
No, you don't need to learn. Just feed it a profile that you think you can.
That's true.
When you go for the interview, you will be able to talk to. My niece. Let me give you a short, quick story. My niece is looking for a job. She got a couple of offers from 2 different jobs, and she's more of an AI native than I am, obviously, generational wise. So she's like, I'll just ask AI how to negotiate. And she went through and she fed the information. She said, I want to negotiate. And it spit out something that was very compelling, very persuasive in her type of language. And she got it. She got, more money, more stocks, whatever. And it occurred to me that I would never have thought like that.
Yeah.
Because I'm not an AI native.
But the young people are using AI even to ask questions that they can't ask their parents. So that's why I said earlier, we have to think about how to protect our children from certain parts of AI so they're not manipulated.
Yep. Ushunu, welcome.
Thank you.
Ichi, asante. Great to be here. This is a lot of learning, a lot of things to think about. My comment is very quick and it's a bit scary. And Kehumba, this is directed at you. You mentioned that in these neural networks, in between these layers, that even the scientists don't know what's going on. That is a scary thought, right? I mean, are the machines taking over? I mean, what does that mean that they don't know what's going on? I thought the parameters are very, I don't know. Anyway, it was a bit mind-boggling for me, and I paused there. I've been thinking about that the whole freaking call, but it's a scary thought. How would you respond to that or react to that, Kehumba?
I think it should be scary because that's a sausage-making process that at the end of the day, what most important is the stuff that come out of the end. What they say is that those layers can be deep and many. Nobody can tell you layer A, this is what happened, layer B, this is exactly what happened. That's what they say. They know that you put in this data and somehow, the machine is able to give you output, a certain output. In terms of what exactly did they do there, nobody can clearly explain to you. But I think it's almost the same thing as human brain. And I don't think we completely knows exactly what happened when you receive the signal from the tip of your and how it get processed. It's the same concept. There's so many processing that goes in there, and nobody can tell you exactly. But what you know is that if you get pricked, somehow your brain is gonna tell you that, hey, that's a needle you need to, or you put your hands on a hot plate, it'll tell you remove your hand from that. But in terms of how did that get processed in your brain, probably nobody can tell you exactly each step. That's what they mean by the neural network. That those layers, they know they can input information and they get output on the other side, but nobody can give you a full explanation that this is what happened here, this is what followed next, and all those kind of stuff. The only thing I was gonna say, maybe as one of my last one, is that for those, especially those in the business side, not everybody here, I think you're all here because you're interested in a topic. Like we said, keeping yourself aware is very important. There are books. There's one book I was listening, I think I just finished. It's called AI 41. And it's a little bit outdated because the guy that wrote that book, I think he wrote it, the last one was 2021, and ChatGPT had just come out. I don't know whether Dr. Homer, you listened to that book, AI 41. He's trying to predict where AI is going to be in 2041, which is how many years from now. And I think each one of us we're probably lying if we're saying we know where the technology is going to be. So we can only theorize and hallucinate, to be honest with you. So we have no idea what it's going to be, but there are things that are going to happen, and it's moving very fast. It's a good book, and it's interesting because the way he's done it, they kind of they've used the way they've done the topic is basically they have a section that is an author who write fictional novels. He write a fictional world where AI is being applied, okay, and then they follow with an explanation of the AI technology that will make that world that currently doesn't exist to happen, and what is already here today, where it is, and how it look like to be there. So whether things like autonomous weapons and jobs that it talks about the job displacement and dislocation, which is a big thing. I think I almost said jobs are not going to be lost. People will still have jobs, which is true, but the question is, what is the quality of that job? If let's say a radiologist is replaced by AI, that we no longer need somebody to interpret X-ray, that is being done by AI. If that person who could have been a radiologist, is he getting an equivalent type of a job or not? Because I think that's the issue, where job get lost, but progressively people, yes, are employed, but they're employed in less fulfilling, less paying job that otherwise they would have had before. So there's a lot to figure out in terms of that. But that's a book, a good book for those who are interested. And obviously look out for other stuff like that. TED Talks are good on the topic if you want to kind of keep tab of what's happening.
Thank you, Kirumba. Thank you, Dr. Uma. As I wrap up, I'll say this. So a lot of people have said similar, Mushunu, to your comment, which is, if this technology is so transformational, so fast, what if bad actors use it, right, for bad things? And my feedback has always been, this is not the first time we have bad actors. Bad actors have existed from the days of, hacking a single system, to hacking an entire network, to using machines to pretend that they're good people and hacking all of us. But there's always been the people who counter that, right? The goodness in us supersedes the bad actors. I was listening to Shankar Vedantam the other day. There was this podcast series it was called Radical Kindness. And in it, they said something very profound, very profound. They said, humans are the only people who can take care of other people's kids. They're the only mammals that can take care of other people's kids. And that's what makes them have goodness, that goodness value in them. And I thought about it deeply. And you know, the researcher went on to say, because she was trying to explore, why are people good? There's some people who can give you a kidney and they don't even know you. There's some people who can
People who are altruistic.
yeah, altruistic. Sess, have you listened to that podcast?
I listened to that one, yeah.
It was insane that humans are the only ones who are capable or are kind enough to take care of someone else's child. Other animals can take care of their kids, but they're not going to take care of other people's kids. And so he was basically saying the kindness in us, the values in us are greater than the badness in us. So this is what I say. For all those people who are going to use AI for bad, there's even more people that are going to use AI for good. And so we're going to be okay. If the machines come, Mushunu, they'll come like the Matrix, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, whatever it was, the Terminator. But then there'll always be the rebellion. Take the machines back. But anyway, thank you all for joining. This was great.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for encouraging me to have this. Dr. Uma, thanks for coming. We'll be back next week. Please let me know any questions you have. And then look forward to seeing you all next week.
Thank you so much. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good evening.
All right, good night, guys.